Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We are going to continue on with this week's theme of acoustic. That's what we're checking out. Dang, it's been a long week. And today we're going to be looking at an artist who I don't think I've heard of before, but I'm kind of surprised that I haven't, being that they're a two-time Grammy Award winning artist. We're going to be looking at Rosalía with the track I See a Darkness. Let's dive in and see what Rosalía is bringing to the table today.
You're my friends, what you told me. Can you see what's inside of me?
A little bit more presence on this, but the first line almost had a crack right at the cusp of where the vocal cords create sounds.
We've been out drinking.
Interesting harmony there.
And the times we've shared our thoughts.
The way the melody sat on top of that chord was a little unstable. Creating a ton of tension.
Ever notice the kind of the dark eye?
Interesting movement on the guitar too.
Well, you know I have a love for everyone I know. And you know I have a drive to live, I won't let go. Could you see its opposition comes rising up sometimes, that its dreadful antiposition comes back in my mind. And then I see a darkness. Oh no, I see a darkness. And now I'm seeing darkness. And then I'll see a darkness. Let you know how much I love you. It's a hope that somehow you can save me from this darkness.
I really like the way she ended that.
We have peace in our lives, together or apart, alone or with our wives. We
That's a nice
can't
movement
stop
as well.
our hurry and pull the smiles inside and light it up forever.
The really heavy picking here.
My best inviting brother, this isn't all I see. And then I see
That last word, I see, very powerful, resonant, large tone. Remember that. I'll be bringing it up.
Now I'm seeing darkness, and then I'll see a darkness. That you know how much I love you. It's a hope that somehow you can save me from this darkness.
I love allowing the voice to waver like that and actually reach points where it's just the air being pushed through and not the vocal cord vibration. We actually lose the pitch and we only get the breath that supports it. and then pushing it just far enough to get the vocal vibration back, to get the pitch returned, and losing it again. It's really great performance, not just from like a sheer musical perspective, but the concept of telling this story, of performing the narrative of the song, and injecting story into the performance itself, how the notes are being created. And I had mentioned earlier in the track that I enjoyed hearing it there as well. I'm uh I'm a little torn on this song though. I'm just gonna come out and say this right here. I like what's on paper. I'd even say that I like what's performed. It is vocals and a guitar all the way through. I think where this song fails for me though is in the production. And it's what makes me think that I would really enjoy a live version of this, or even a stripped down version. I think an audio tree or an NPR Tiny Desk version of this song would be breathtaking. But what I get here in this studio version of it, for every good thing that they do, they also have something that I think detracts from an awesome element of it. Always one step forward and one step back, never really advancing anywhere, and anything that I find is really evocative ends up feeling undermined at the same moment. And I think that really sucks because there is a good song here. And there's also a fantastic performance. The way that I envision this sounding with a different production is amazing. I don't even think it needs to be re recorded so much as just remixed. And I kind of want to hear that version of the song that has a different production style on it. So I guess this series of things that I enjoyed but could have been better, contrasting criticism and praise at the same time, it's going to have to do with contrast. I had mentioned towards the end of the big bridge that her voice was booming, very powerful, wide, very projected, supported by air very well. And I wanted you to remember that. Was that the loudest point of the song? I don't think you would be wrong if you said yes. It certainly feels like that. It has the largeness that you expect with it, but if you're paying attention to the volume bars over there, you realize it wasn't any louder than any other part of the song. So it wasn't louder at all. In fact, it wasn't any louder than the quietest whispers in the song. How can that be? Production magic. Here's the thing. I think the performance itself is highly contrasting. There's a lot of cool things coming out of the guitar. We have arpeggiations, we have chord strumming, we have alternating notes, we have something melodic. A lot of cool things. The guitar is never happy just doing one thing. And when I talk about the vocals, I talk about the largeness of that big moment, but also the quietness, the etherealness, the range that we have on display. We have everything from these big booming moments down to something so timid we don't even get pitch all the time, like at the end of the song. And yet, for something as contrasty as this, with so many dynamic qualities, it's the same volume all the way through. That just doesn't make sense to me. You're not going to be the same volume with full bodied projection versus light ethereal whispering. It's not the same. And so this song ends up feeling very unnatural to me, but also it ends up feeling very flat, which is not what you want from an emotionally heart-wrenching, melancholic song, where your performer is putting everything into this, reaching all sorts of depths to create contrast in their performance, to showcase, well, it's not even a showcase of their wide range and skills as much as it's what the song demands. Something that should be exceptionally emotive ends up feeling flat and robotic to me. It is underwhelming. This song really could have done with a little less of an equalization, a normalization of everything that the vocalist does, and allowing the nuances and variety to be nuanced and various rather than having this singular sound for everything. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it's a production thing. It's not a performance thing. I don't think you would even need to re record the vocal line to get a better version of this song. It just needs to be produced more like a live version than a studio flattening out of everything that's interesting, of removing all the good characteristics of the song that make it a unique performance from the vocalist. I don't know why you would want to sand off everything that makes it interesting and turn it into this dull, lifeless thing. It is beyond bewildering. It's just bonkers. I was honestly very upset listening to this. But there's another side to the equation too, speaking particularly about the vocal dynamics, is how it relates to the guitar. The guitar feels rather raw. There isn't a lot of production put on it. There's a little bit of equalization thrown on, a little bit of compression. But honestly, the guitar just sounds good. Guitars have great timbre and warmth and resonance. Acoustic guitars are just fantastic instruments. You don't really need to do much as long as they're mic'd properly. The thing is, though, is that her vocals also are rich and detailed, and they have so much production thrown on them. It isn't just about shaving off any of the unique characteristics of her timbre or normalizing the volume down to a specific range, but it also has to do with the multiple layers and the heavy reverb on this. It ends up feeling like two completely different things. Like when you're watching a CGI action film and it's just so obvious that the people are composited on top of green screen CGI. Like there's just, the lighting is off, the color grading isn't perfect, and there's just like, it's a total separation. You can tell they're standing in front of a green screen. That's what this feels like. I can tell that this vocalist, or at least it appears that this vocalist is not in the same room as this guitarist. They have two totally different effects put on them. They have two totally different timbres. The echo and massive reverb on the vocals alone makes it feel like she's singing in a deep cave where the guitars are on a soundstage right in front of me playing a gorgeous thing, and I'm hearing this version of the song so far away coming from the vocals. It doesn't mix, it doesn't match, it's distracting, but ultimately I think it's part of what helps make the vocals feel so flat. This uniform sound. It's just, it never quite clicks, not in isolation. I don't think that they're good for the vocals in any situation, but definitely not with the way that they're lined up production wise with the guitar. And this is why I think I would love a live version of this. Again, Audio Tree or NPR Tiny Desk. I love performances from these two places because everything tends to feel very natural. Everything works, and they're just, I don't know. It's got to be the production, but also, what goes into it. NPR Tiny Desk tend to also do stripped down performances if it's an electronic artist, and I tend to really love those too because they allow dynamic elements to shine through that weren't in the original. Um, and so, this is just a big glaring issue for me, and I'm really curious I'm curious what Rosalia thinks of this. I'd love to have a chat with the producer to find out what they were trying to do. Just because it doesn't work for me, just because I have a laundry list of criticisms that sound objective, doesn't mean that my opinion is right or the most correct. The song could be going for something artistically that I'm just not aware of, and it might absolutely nail that with the production that they went with. I'm coming at it purely from a musical standpoint. And so I'd love to ask either one of them, and I don't think either one would have bad things to say. That just isn't normally what you do in any industry, is to throw people under the bus. But I'd love to get some candid responses from people involved with this on their opinions of how it turned out. If nothing else, again, just to get a different perspective on it, maybe to come around and appreciate it somehow. But I mean, as it stands, the production alone makes me not want to listen to it again, despite really liking what's going on. And I've already talked about this a little bit, but what's the structure here? This is very cool. I don't know what kind of music Rosalia makes, being that she is a Grammy Award winner and that this is definitely in a pop sphere of vocal delivery. I'm going to assume she's a pop artist of some sort. Um, and so to hear something where the structure is linear, I think is fascinating. You just don't hear that in pop music too often. Even if they go for a bit more of a stripped down song, you're still going to find verses and choruses and bridges. And maybe that's in here, but I never heard anything that felt repeated for me. Vocally, I never heard anything that sounded like a chorus, a hook, a repeated phrase that I could pick out and say, oh, we're back to this idea. I never heard anything like that. But musically, there is no ostinato in here. There's no lick. There's no loop that I'm like, oh, okay, we're back to this. Everything feels like it's progressing forward. It never stops, it never looks back. It's always about that next step. And the guitar does this in a lot of interesting ways. The chords, I don't think, change too much, but what we do with them is in constant flux. As I mentioned, we have straight strumming. We get that right at the beginning, and I kind of assumed, like a lot of acoustic guitar pop tracks, we were going to stick with that. But we don't. We end up getting arpeggiation as well. There was that one lick that I got kind of lost in. It was just two alternating notes. We got rid of the chord progression entirely and just stuck with two notes, and it made the song feel stagnant for just a moment. Not a whole section, a bar and a half maybe, and then back to movement. But the movement we went to was not where we came from. It was a new step forward. These kind of things, it made me want to pay a lot of attention to the guitar. And if I listen to it again, I think I would devote an entire listen to just what the guitarist is doing, because I love the variety that we get out of the guitar work, and how what the guitar is doing is not just focused on variety for the sake of variety, but what can it do to embellish upon and support what the vocalist is doing. And I think that's awesome. It really is. Um, Coming back to production though, the guitarist ended up doing these really heavy accented picks at one point in the song, and there's just these really heavy moments. Every other beat, I think it was, every beat maybe, was just this impact. But it didn't really sound like it, did it? You could tell, yeah, he's picking these really hard, but that's it. It's the illusion of weight, because once again, the guitar's been normalized. The softer picking is just as loud as the heavier one, so all we have is the characteristic of the timbre itself, than any of the other dynamic qualities that are accompanied by that. And it makes that section sound flatter than it should be. This whole part, the guitar getting heavy and the vocals getting loud and full bodied, should be a peak, and instead it's just another moment. And that is such a disaster. It's a shame the song doesn't get to be what it wants to be. Anyways, I gotta get off this because I will rant about it for another time. I am seriously upset by it. I am. This is a phenomenal performance. It is a great song. It can be evocative, I think. And the production just ties it down. It puts weights around its ankles and doesn't allow it to float away, to become what it should be. It's been grounded when it can take flight, and that is one of the most disappointing things I think I can hear in music. Is so much potential, and some engineer decided to tie it to the ground. Just. And from that perspective, though, I mentioned that there's a melancholic power in this. It's it's in the chord progression. It's in the repeated notes, focusing, hyper focusing on this specific feeling. It's in that odd third chord tension we had in the opening of the song. I don't remember what that was. I think it was the third chord of the whole song, wasn't it? And I mentioned that the vocal melody just sat very unstably on top of that. It was tense. I don't think we ever saw that again. It was a very unique note to put on that, to open the song with such dissonance. It's a very introspective song, though, and to me, by the end of it, what was melancholic, the perspective has been shifted. I wouldn't say it's victorious, but there is power to it. It might be about taking, I don't know, taking some shortcomings and learning from it, learning from your mistakes, taking something that it oppresses you and turn it around into something you can elevate yourself off of. I'm not sure. Something along those lines, though. Finding light within the darkness, to go along with the title, "I See a Darkness," is my take on the harmonic movement through this song. And I think the fact that, again, the structurally it never looks back. It's always going forward, trying something new, doing a different idea. There is no repeated motif in here. There is no chorus. It's just about always taking that next step. I think that lines up with my feeling harmonically as well. I'm going to take a second to read some lyrics on this, and then we're going to wrap this video up. The song kind of is that. I kind of found it as a personal victory of overcoming one's darkness, but there is still the idea of light against the darkness in the lyrics. It just doesn't come from within. Structurally, there is a chorus, though. I don't know how I missed it. I'm really curious to listen to it a second time and see if musically both choruses are the same. I mean, y'all know I don't really pick up too many lyrics on a first time through. If I did, I would have seen, definitely. There's some repeated lines in here. But the song is 3 verses, a pre-chorus and a chorus, 2 more verses, and the final chorus. It is still rather linear. And I like that about it. But what's interesting is that lyrically it is cyclical. Verses 1 through 3 ask a friend if they've ever noticed anything about them, a darkness within. Because as often as I put on my mask, and I'm a happy-go-lucky person, real chill to hang out with, that kind of stuff, my mind can quickly drift into darkness. And as the chorus says over and over, and then I see a darkness. Oh no, I see a darkness. Now I'm seeing darkness. And then I'll see a darkness. I don't think it works too well poetically. The continued phrasing and the slightly altered beginning of the line itself, it's kind of rough to just say out loud, but I think it ends up working in the music, which is interesting. But this ends with, "Did you know how much I love you? There's a hope that somehow you can save me from the darkness." So hoping that this friendship, this love, will be what maybe sends the darkness away, maybe keeps it away. And verse 4 and 5 just talk about how their lives might be better in the future, that hopefully someday they'll both find peace, whether they're still friends or not. That they'll be able to put their smiles on the inside and have light forever. But sometimes, today, they see darkness. And hopefully, somehow you'll be able to save me from it. I think that works well with the music. I'm kind of interested to hear the original. I don't think I brought this up. This is a cover from somebody named Bonnie Prince Billy. They wrote the original one. They are a singer-songwriter and actor from Kentucky. They were born in 1970, so they're still around, I'd wager. I mean, I guess it's not a guarantee, but they wouldn't be that old today if they're still alive. But what's interesting is that the description here says that he's known for his do-it-yourself punk aesthetic. His music has been likened to Americana, folk, roots, country, punk, and indie rock. So, kind of interested in what the original sounded like. You know what? We're gonna take a second. I wanna hear this. All right. So there's actually two versions of this. Also, he's still alive, which is good. There's the original and then a remixed one, or remade one, re-envisioned. That's half of the length and apparently a very different vibe. It's more upbeat. I haven't heard it yet, but Rosalia's was based on the original, so that's what we're going to listen to.
Well, you're my friend, it's what you told me. And can you see what's inside of me? Many times we've been out drinking, many times we've shared our thoughts. But did you ever notice the kind of thoughts I got? Well, you know I have a love for everyone I know. And you know I have a drive to live, I won't let go. Could you see its opposition comes rising up sometimes? That it's dreadful and position comes blacking in my mind. That I see a darkness, and that I see a darkness, and that I see a darkness, and that I see a darkness. And did you know how much I love you? There's a hope that somehow you can save me from this darkness. Well, I hope that someday, buddy, we have peace in our lives, together or apart, alone or with our wives, that we can stop our whoring and pull the smiles inside and light it up forever and never go to sleep. My best unbeaten brother, this isn't all I see. Oh no, I see a darkness. 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 Did you know how much I love you? Is a hope that somehow you can save me from this darkness.
Yeah, that's interesting. Usually, with covers, you'll find that there is some key elements taken away from the original, especially if you're not going a one-to-one cover, because then you're just going to copy everything identically. But there'll be some key elements you want to incorporate into yours. And we kind of get the general melody, but we don't really have a carbon copy of that, especially rhythmically, where this one comes off a bit more off the cuff and jagged. The ways that phrases from the vocals tend to start ahead or behind where they would typically be placed. Usually, instead of starting at the beginning of a bar, we might start at the end of two, just a little bit behind and rush. Get 3 or 4 syllables grouped together rather quickly in order to catch up for that lost time. It feels a bit more colloquial, a bit more conversational. Because of that, there isn't a perfect rhythmic timing to it. And so while we have the general melodic flow present in Rosalia's version, the pacing of it is drastically different. When we look at what's going on underneath, this just has a very basic drum, little bit of syncopation, very little bit of syncopation on the bass kick, and a very standard backbeat on the snare. Just enough to give us a rhythmic pulse to the song, with a piano primarily giving us chord progression. This is drastically different. We kind of get some of this at the beginning of Rosalia's version, but overall, Rosalia takes it in a very different direction, creating this linear structure to it, never really allowing the guitar to do the same thing twice. And I think it's what gives the song an interesting pace. This feels like being stuck in a moment, in a feeling, in the darkness, and hoping against hope that someone, maybe your best friend, can help you get out of it. Rosalia's is less hopeful and more deterministic. I will get out of this and you will help me. Not because I'm forcing you, but because that's what friends do. And the linearity of the music, I feel like, takes a little bit of that into their own hands as well. It's always about a step forward, never getting stuck in the darkness. And it's wild how a simple musical change, moving from a singular foundation to a linear one, can drastically alter the feeling of the song. And so while I do appreciate this performance, I love the dynamics in it, I love the vulnerability in it. Um, it just sounds good to listen to. I think on paper, Rosalia improved it in every way. I really love the alteration she made to the vocals, giving us that really big, booming ending to the song, something a bit more triumphant and determined. Again, that's what kind of made me think the song was about taking things into your own hands, about you physically pulling yourself and creating this light in the darkness. But I think it works with the overall vision too. It turns it in from, putting the emotional weight on someone else to simply being helped. It's not about you're going to make my life better, but you're going to help me improve. And that brings things, I think, a little bit more balanced in a friendship and less one-sided. But also the linearity of the music I find to be more interesting. So it just makes me want an acoustic, a stripped down version of it so bad. Just get away from this production. Give me a live rendition of it. Give me a mix of Rosalia's composition and performance with Bonnie Prince Billy's production, and I think that is golden. If anyone knows of that, send it my way, please. That wraps us up. Those are my thoughts. Rosalia's I See a Darkness, a cover from Bonnie Prince Billy. Let me know what you thought of this, though. Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that I said that you'd like to correct me on or add on to? Maybe you have your own interpretation of things. Put all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this one. We do have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to wrap up this week's theme of acoustic music. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.